Greetings. Welcome, everyone. Taking a few slow, deepening breaths through the body. And feeling on the inhalation, the suffusion of the breath throughout the whole body. Slowing it down if you need to, so you feel the breath irrigating through your nervous system, through the cell, the flesh, the bones, the bone marrow, from the brain, the head, right down through the torso, belly, pelvic area, arms, legs, hands, feet. And on an exhalation, slowing the exhalation and feeling the sense of releasing, giving back, letting go of what's being held in the body that serves you no longer right now. You don't need to hold. Until you begin to feel a bit more steadying, grounding, soothing, calming, arriving. And bringing to the heart kindly, spacious, welcoming of all that you are and all that you're with, as feeling, sensation, sense of your being, your awareness, mind, thoughts. If there's any feeling of discomfort or emotional pain or constriction, anything that is not easy, just to be really patient, loving, kindly, gentle, and maybe allowing the breath also with your awareness to irrigate through the feeling tone of that or the sensation of it with this gentle kindliness. I'll just keep connecting with the simplicity of the breathing and awareness within embodied presence. And noticing sometimes when there is discomfort, painful feeling tone tends to spin into thoughts, stories. Just encouraging to go beneath the stories and the thoughts into the felt sense area of the body, particularly around the torso, down through to the belly, heart through to the belly. Sometimes feels a bit raw or vulnerable, turbulent, or maybe numb. And with a lot of gentleness, just with the breath and awareness, bringing some space, allowing what's felt to be felt without complicating further. Trusting the ground beneath you, and just feeling the support of earth. It's releasing on the out breath anything that you're holding or with that's not easy to be with, unresolved. Just giving it back, releasing, putting it on the altar for another time, the imaginal altar, to just offer it up, letting that be, so you can settle and just trust the flow of unfolding in your life, the deeper unfolding of the Dharma, of the way things are, rather than trying to push and pull at everything, picking it apart, just learning to be more at ease with the discomfort, not everything being as it should be, which often it's not. And bringing gratitude for what is supporting you right now. Breath, Sangha, the dharma, the earth beneath you, this body, your heart, your intention aligned with awakening, compassion, with wisdom. Your part, unique expression and offering within sacred web of life. So learning, practicing, being okay within everything not always being okay, being ease, taking the foot off the accelerator, letting just things be. So greetings and welcome, everyone. I'd like to acknowledge that this coming week is Earth Week, leading to Earth Day, next Saturday, 22nd of April. So there's quite a lot happening in SMS and Peon around that we've been facilitating and supporting and offering. So I'd just like to reflect some themes that I've been with the last while around shifting the story that we're in, breaking the spell of the way that we go about business as usual, and in that process sometimes contribute to the unconsciousness that we're in that's perpetuating the breakdown of our environment and a more harmonious way of being within the earth, with nature, as part of nature, as nature. I remember one of the elders in South Africa of the Khoisan, so-called Bushmen, grandmother, said a comment on our modern civilization that we're so off track we don't even know there's a track. So finding our way back to the track, this is all within us because we're part of nature. We have a very deep connection with the spirit of earth, as earth gave birth to all that we are, our body, through millennia. Everything that we depend on, everything that we use, even this computer, has come from the earth. We sometimes forget that, think it's come from somewhere else. All the elements that make up our life and our ability to have contact in this world, in this plane of existence. I was interested that when William Shatner, who was known as Captain Kirk of the commented when he was taken to space by Jeff Bezos that he was looking forward and expecting to have a very beautiful experience, a bit like Jodie Foster's character when she goes out to space and looks into the heavens in the film Contact, commenting that she was saying they should have sent a poet. And he comments about how he had a very different experience leaving behind our tiny planet. And he records, just quoting him, it was among the strongest feelings of grief I've ever encountered. The contrast between the vicious coldness of space and the warmth of the nurturing of earth below filled me with an overwhelming sadness. Every day we are confronted with the knowledge of further destruction of earth at our hands, the extinction of animals, species of flora and fauna, things that took 5 billion years to evolve, and suddenly we will never see them again because of the interference of humankind. It filled me with dread. My trip to space was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it felt like a funeral. So the hero of Star Trek bringing another message for us, a very real message this time, very real, that we're all swimming in, that we all know about, don't have to underline this message. It's very visible, we feel it, we know it. But it is the case that sometimes we have to go outside the norm, like going out to space, outside the business as usual, outside the roll and run of things to really get and feel what we're in. There's a teaching by Srila Sagadatta, a great realized one, contemporary of our times, passed over 1980s, I think, who said that what's the essence of this practice? It's to use the mind, to know the mind, which is a lot of what meditation is, to use the mind, to know the mind, to go beyond mind. So to use the mind, to know the mind is vipassana, to see the nature of things, see permanence, see change, but not to stop there, to go beyond mind, to go beyond the stories and the creations of mind. So this is this mind precedes all things, as the Buddha said. The effect that William Shatner is talking about has originated from the projections of the human mind that's brought us to this point of polycrisis that we are now swimming in, that we're in, that is all around us as earth beings, earth bodies. And this mind, often we think of mind as our thinking, whereas mind is actually permeating everything as consciousness. The essence of mind is pure essence of consciousness, distilled into spaceless, timeless, boundaryless awareness. That's how we experience the essence of mind. Mental activity is the surface. That's often what we think of mind as our thoughts. Mind, heart, that division, but actually mind is everything. The originator. So mental activity is more like the surface, the waves on the surface, and the deeper knowing presence at the heart, this Buddhic, if you like, the awakening into the undying mind, heart, the citta, as the Buddha did, the deathless heart. Its nature, what's its nature is Buddha, Buddhic, which means to know. It's knowing. Not necessarily knowing, just seeing everything out there. We know things through the dualistic mind mostly, but the knowing, the Kuan Yin knowing, the deep Avalokiteshvara knowing, the one that knows that all things are resident in this one awareness, and therefore there's no ultimate boundary. It's a seamless, unified, dynamic experience. The knowing, so how do we know that we know? Ajahn Chah said, you can't know, you can't turn around and see the knowing, you can only be the knowing. You can't, it's not an object, it's pure subjectivity. The deeper knowing as presence, we are present. This is the most true thing we can say about ourselves. Everything else is, in a way, a complication. And being present, shifting into presence, we can begin to break the spells of illusion, the projections of the mind that have brought us to this point. So mindfulness is known also, the Buddha called mindfulness the flood stopper, stopping the flow of the mind, turning back to the source, seeing the world that we've built on stories about ourselves, about what we believe, stories about the world, and the way that wherever we lean into those stories, that's what we create, really. And that's what we create, these realities. And we have like personal stories, and we have cultural stories, and we have collective stories. And we cycle in those stories until we go out to space, go beyond the mind and have a perspective on them. And what are these stories, and what are they perpetuating? So we know that they're perpetuating a point where we're in a free fall of environmental and climate collapse. That's happening. So this is an induction and initiation into shifting from this dualistic mind as victims to this happening, to realizing we're co-creators in this process, and that there's a whole different way we can be in relationship to it. It's Yoniso Manasikara, the heart of mindfulness. Yoniso Manasikara means to put back into the womb, the heart of awareness, all of the creations of the mind, to contemplate them intimately, and to shift your point of orientation, to listen through the felt sense, to listen through your embodied. The knowing, the mind knowing isn't the mental, just the mental sphere. It's often distilled into thought, but pre that is the embodied knowing, the feeling knowing, the sensation body, feeling tone through the whole body. And as a practice, as we start to feel and begin to the layers of emotionality, the reactivity of the mind starts to settle and calm, we distill pure feeling essence, which, if you like, is intuition, the intuitive knowing. So I'm saying all of this because we need to come from a different orientation to work with how it is, not from just within the stories, or we can come from a different invitation. The moment invites us into a quantum shift in our being to help break the spell of the story of business as usual. The story of business as usual and the system we're in story of endless growth, the assumption of ownership, that we own things, that we're on a trajectory to a better world, that we have to keep producing something to create something around this, that it's never quite enough. The assumption of ownership has led us to a few controlling the destiny of the planet who own the most, seemingly believe they do and have extraordinary power. But at the heart of this, it's in a way a desperate inner dukkha feeling of separation, because we're owning things. We're not actually, things aren't part of us. Everything is actually part of us. We are everything at one profound, seamless level. We don't have to own it. And because we don't know that, this feeling of non-belonging, seeing everything as outside, once everything's outside, then we have a relationship. We want it, we fear it, we're in some complexity, we feel left out, we want to control, we want to avoid. So all of these moves we make in a way are still not going to the heart of the issue. They can help heal, we can help, have a patchwork of solutions, but really at the heart of this initiation of free fall that we're going through is a shift that we're invited into, to radically shift, which the Dharma can help facilitate, to come out of the spell of the narrative that there's nothing we can do but slide further into an unsustainable world that involves vast tracts of earth being sacrificed to our plundering, peoples that don't count being sacrificed, whole geographies, and increasingly that's all of us. So this breaking the set, not accepting that meme, if you like, that narrative, that's like an infection that runs through the collective mind. I can't do anything. It's just overwhelmed, frozen. To bring about a embodied intention. It's not, we can be aware, but what's really important is to understand the power we have actually. Not big power. We don't have the power of a billionaire. We don't have the power, even though in some ways they're ultimately powerless, as we all are in the face of the reality of change and impermanence and sickness and ill health and death. Sometimes I think they forget that. We don't have the power of nature. We're not saying we have the power to control, but we have agency. So to be aware that there's an invitation for us in this moment, as there always has been, always is, as the Dharma invites us to shift out the centrality of a mind caught in dukkha towards non-dukkha, greed and longing and hoping and looking for something outside to rescue, in aversion and splitting off what we split away from ourselves, in the confusion and delusion of the mind. This sort of virus, it's like a virus that's infecting everyone, and overwhelming. So people feel just going into massive reactivity. It's like a break from the reality that we're in. So I love how Thich Nhat Hanh talks about this deep, unified field, living in the unified field, to actually live that more as an offering into the surprising and unexpected ways that the Dharma can work through us. As Nisargadatta said, reality comes in the form of the unexpected, when we're open to that, when we're operating from within a different channel. And then, Thich Nhat Hanh, he said, when you, in that space, you don't have to run around and grab everything. Because when you, as he's quoting him, when you touch one thing with deep awareness, you touch everything. When you touch your heart, your body is touching life all the time. Life is touching you. What is it saying? How is it speaking? What is it? What are you receiving? Are we touching, being touched, but we're already looking for the next thing because it's not enough? So allowing what is touching us, allowing what's touching us is enormous at this time. But the heart can hold it, the heart can be there, because the nature of the heart, the true heart, is deathless, diamond-like. Can we find that heart? Because that heart is the most real. As the Buddha said, we take the real to be the unreal and the unreal to be the real. Your heart, your diamond-like consciousness, knowing presence, illuminating the field of everything that you can know, is the most real. So to come out of this abstraction of the mind that sees everything as an object, to fear, coming out of changing the narrative, the story of inevitability, of the destruction of nature, of all life. That's the story we're getting from the power players. Fossil fuel is doubling down, massive industrial agriculture of animals, devastating, sucking up all of life. It's like we can only suck up all of life to turn it to a profit. That's the meta-narrative. And to do that, we have to desensitize ourselves. We have to agree to be conduits and part of a system that is about acquisition, consumption, dominating, dividing, projecting what we can't accept in ourselves on increasingly vulnerable peoples. So to break set and to make, how do we, so just not with engaging the earth, making a commitment to shift orientation into a new story. We need a new story, a new vision. And we are part of that story from the depths of our being. And we can feel that story will start to live through us if we allow the space for it and invite it in. Because that's the nature of Dharma, if we think of Dharma as reality. Reality is, Ajahn Chah said, the living Dharma is living in us. So to break this set is awareness is present, but also what is really important as we did the precepts and the refuges is to make conscious intention. Everything is preceded by intentionality. So rather than just being a leaf and just going with what this one's doing, what's wanted, what my duties are, what do you really want? What do we really want? What is really important for us? Because this is now. We don't have time to mess around anymore. To make a conscious intention, so that intention becomes the seed from a different story to align with what would we like to bring in to our intention. Like the Bodhisattva intention is beautiful. It means at the heart of everything, I don't put my needs as central in myself. Yes, they're important and need to be tended to and cared for and expressed and understood. That is important. But at a deeper level, my intention at the Bodhicitta, the Bodhisattva, is to align with a deeper flow of life, of awakening, of consciousness awakening to itself, really. Of life awakening to itself and being part of that which serves that process. So shifting from needing and longing to generosity, having the power, we have the power to offer, to be generous, to share, from being lost and abstracted and overwhelmed, to bring warmth and lovingness, even when we don't feel it, to even when we don't feel that. This is a power. When we're tempted into, even when we stand up and challenge, we can still do that. Lovingness, to be authentic, to really feel what is authentic, what is real for me. Am I just going along with what's needed? What is my authentic voice? Ethical, caring, collaborative, sensitive, receptive, going beyond business as usual. Do I have to do this? Do I want to do this? What would I? And it feels like when that really crystallizes, that intentionality, that clarity, life comes to meet you. It's not a dead. That's the thing about consciousness, or it's all within conscious awareness. Everything is conscious in that. So we're in that. Then it's a speaking, responsive world. It's responding. And that intention clarifies and seeded a new story in service of life, in service of the beauty and the exquisite offering and expression of nature, as part of nature, of earth. If we're going to put the head on any altar, let's at this time put it on the altar of earth and serve the earth. And be a conduit for that beauty, that life, that ever-giving spirit of billions of years. Extraordinary, non-separative. And understanding that we're in this massive spewing of shadow. All that needs to be knowing is coming up from the shadows. And it's terrifying, it's awful, it's overwhelming, it's freezing us into our individual separative selves. But it's not the end of the story. It's not what we have to choose to go along with. We are here to process that shadow, to bring the shadows into light, to heal, to release, and to be a conduit for that. As we re-establish a very different relationship to ourselves, to each other, to earth, to it all. So just to finish with this quote, as I feel that it wraps up quite nicely, actually. He's just reflecting with you what goes through my mind, by L.R. Nost. I'm not actually sure who L.R. Nost is, or if I'm pronouncing their name properly. I should endeavor to find out, but I love what they've said. Do not be dismayed by the brokenness of the world. All things break, and all things can be mended. Not with time, as they say, but with intention. So go. Love intentionally, extravagantly, unconditionally. The broken world waits in the shadows for the light that is you. The broken world waits in the shadows for the light that is you. So we all need to shine our light, even in the midst of us daily feeling horrible, overwhelmed, mess everywhere, can't get it together. That's all okay. How are we supposed to feel in this time? But to bring the heart's frequency, this extraordinary frequency, is, even before doing, an exquisite offering, a powerful offering, a real offering. It makes a difference, don't doubt it. Even our broken chanting, spotty chanting, was a beautiful offering. Thank you for joining what you could. It sends a frequency. Don't doubt that. Every moment you bring metta, every moment you reflect, every moment you choose a different way, not just going down to the lowest common denominator of where the mind can go. Every moment we make an effort, every moment we show up, we're here to show up as conscious, loving, present beings, and let the Dharma unfold as it will, guiding, intuitively guiding, so the mind becomes then a servant of the heart. So thank you, dear ones. It's just sharing with you my thoughts and my process, and if any of it's helpful for you, please feel free to continue exploring. We're explorers like Star Trek in this multiverse, multidimensional world we live in, subtle realms to the earth and beyond that we don't even know. Let's keep exploring, let's keep loving, let's keep valuing this precious life for as long as we have it, each breath. So yes, welcome any thoughts, any questions, anything like that. Also welcome if you've got things to get to, please feel free to get to them. Otherwise you want to hang out, we have about another 20 minutes together. You can put your hand up, or you can just sort of butt in. Yes, Sarah or Sarah and Dennis, greetings.
Hi, Thanissara.
Hi.
The honor to speak with you. I had something I was planning to say, and in the moment, I'm noticing how nervous I am. Fight or flight, just to be, talking to you. But I wanted to just share with you that I listened to your talk this week, Patriarchy to Pachamama. I listened to it twice in my studio, and it's just this time of reckoning for me within the last year. I've sat with this Sangha after 20 years of being away, which was catalyzed by a major trauma in my life. And so there's been this return, and I just feel so ripe, so open, and I want to participate. My husband and I have gone vegan. We've repaired. We've been doing like interpersonal, relational therapy work with Mia Tremblay, and are sitting Sangha on the island. And I want to deconstruct the patriarchy within myself, and yet I'm surrounded. Like with the galleries I work with, I'm an artist, with the parents of the children in the school where my daughter goes. So I'm just really taking in your teachings and your wisdom and wanting you to know what a difference they're making. And I'm hoping that it will ripple out, and that I won't be too scared to make a difference in the way that I can.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I really hear you, and I think that vulnerable, that's how it feels to be in our heart, that vulnerable risk of will this, and to lead from there, to take that, to move from there. Every movement we make starts to create more space for that new story, that new, what's uplifting, what's actually in the universe, awakening to itself, to come in. And it feels very wobbly. It's not what we're perhaps used to in terms of where we've leaned historically into the narratives and stories of the mind. That is where we're conditioned by, really, culturally and so on, familiarly and so on. And then with that, there's always a lot of, it's just, doubt, self-doubt. It brings up all these early patternings of, because we're not really coming from our authentic self when we're leading. I mean, it's not that, we need to utilize the mind to speak even, so everything. But when we move into that wobbly and really start to trust there, we're moving into something very ancient in ourselves, actually. And that knowing is ancient, and it will guide us in unusual ways. So just keep going, just keep following the wobble.
Yeah, vulnerability. And then when you talk about the ancient part, and you shared about the mountain near Damagiri, and I feel that, like, when I'm in the zone of creating, making art that's authentic, or communicating with someone deeply, all that self-consciousness about striving does dissipate and completely vanishes. So there's
Exactly.
that illusion can happen.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's
right.
not like asserting myself, being at the front of the room and being the great speaker, or, at the opening of the art show, being some sort of star. It's about, like, the transmission of really a true voice to make a difference.
Yeah, I think what we all appreciate nowadays is people being, and each of us being more real, rather than having to project a persona, which is a very fraught thing anyway. It has that shadow of so much self-doubt, really. Unless one's a bit sort of sociopathic, then you never doubt, and you should be doubting. that's what this system rewards those that don't have that vulnerability, in the that have split away from sensitivity. So actually, it's really good that we feel that vulnerability, that unsureness, that as we come deeper into our true, authentic way, that will always be accompanying us somewhat. The idea is not to feel like we're so armored, we're just, yeah, so yay to the vulnerability of what it actually is to be human.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, when we send out the, we don't send it, we put it on a YouTube. The poet, the quote, N.L.R. Nost. And the quote, I can just actually paste that in the chat for you, because I'm not sure where you would find that in their work. Yeah, any other thoughts? I've been working with, I'm doing this course at the moment, which is one of the facilitators, Al-Noor Ladar, who's a sort of visionary thinker these times. And he was bringing in the subject in one of the sessions of this idea of Waitiko, which is has a Native American term, and sometimes Windingo has, the different tribes have different words. So I've been really contemplating that actually for a long time, because I think it's a very, very helpful way of understanding the territory I'm talking about. And so some of my input has been inspired by Al-Noor's reflections as well. He wrote an article called "Seeing Waitiko" from Cosmos magazine, which is worth looking at. It's an idea of it's like it's a meme or a virus. one of the things that this draws on is that there's sort of like what genes are to biology, memes are to culture. What happens is like the different, thoughts or ideas or musical just different, they're kind of like viral like. And in a way, the culture that we're in, the sense of the strongest meme around climate and earth that I feel is infecting, it's like an infection that draws people out of their authentic heart and their knowing, and leads them into, if they feel victimized, it's like fear and overwhelm. If they feel like they're contributing to this, to perpetuating this vertigo, then they're sort of more in the persecutory kind of psychotic break, and just pushing their psychosis, their sociopathy, which we're seeing a lot of that in the political realm. But this sort of the greater meme that I'm looking at is this sense of it's too late to do anything. That's what, if you look at the story there's the doubling down of the fossil fuel companies, the hijacking of the COP, all that, it's like the message is that we're just going to keep going. We're putting our foot on the accelerator. We're not easing. We're not really radically shifting the system. The only choice is that we just keep going until the planet heats to the point where no one can live on it. But, don't change the system. So the meme is like, we have no choice. You can't change the system. The system is about taking all of life and profiting a tiny percent, and they're in control. That's the kind of, whether it's unconscious or conscious, that's sort of the storyline that's, and the media gets behind it on the whole. And so when the Native Americans had started to see what the European invaders were about, they literally couldn't understand the depth of the plundering and destruction and the violence. It wasn't in their nature to understand it. So they understood it by the Jack Forbes, who's a Native American historian, talks about the way they understood this. We have a very bad case of vertigo. We are very badly infected, like a zombie apocalypse infection level, and spreading this. And they called this, that those that are infected become icy in their heart. They have an icy heart. They're not really humane anymore. They're not really in the human realm anymore. They're abstracted. And they are consuming, the Waitiko of this era. And in this meme is like the moral right to feed off and consume all of life. And so they equated this with the cannibalism of life itself. And so what's the antidote to that? Is that clearly we've gotten to this tipping point where there's only one way that goes, which is death. So it's a sort of, it's like when apartheid fell, which was when Thanissara and I arrived in South Africa actually to teach dharma there, as we were invited to do. At the moment apartheid fell, but it was falling already. But at the point with the first election of liberation in 1994, a lot of particularly the men in the Afrikaans culture could not think of another world. They had a very entitled world. The whole system ran to support them and their power. They had guaranteed jobs, everything. They couldn't think of another world. So a lot of them suicided, and they took their families with them. Not a lot of them, but there was a spate. And it was like they felt that there's no other way other than death. And in a certain way, it feels that that's driving this sort of like people can't vision another way. So we'll just keep putting the accelerator on until we all go out in a big, there's just this, there's such a disconnect with and lack of trust of life itself. Such a fear of eros and life and nature that's so historical and so ancient in the cultural shaping, particularly the Eurocentric cultural shaping. So such a split. It's so painful, that split. And so a lot of this work in the Dharma that we're doing and all the other ways that we're working is in some ways thawing out of that frozen split, reclaiming the soul, if you like, reclaiming the heart. And the best defense, like Paul Levy, he calls Waitiko malignant egophrenia, which is the political realm's full of that. We don't have to, I won't infect you with all sorts of examples. We don't, but the way that is the way that they understood to be immune from this virus is to have your authentic heart, to know that you can touch the world in that when it's in that state, but not be infected, because your heart is so infused with the intentionality towards the Dhamma, towards bodhicitta, towards compassion. We can get overwhelmed, we can get caught up, but we're not going to become completely consumed. We know how to find our way back. In the Dharma, they call that also entering the stream of the Dhamma. We get lost, but we know how to find our way back to the Dhamma, to reality. And that the way, this is the Alnor's piece of work that I really appreciated, awareness. We're very aware, we cultivate awareness in Dharma. We're aware, mindfully aware. You're saying it's not enough. You have to intend towards that news story, and then you have to act on it, in body, speech, and mind. So it's not enough just we can be aware, but to translate that awareness into clear intentionality and allowing that to guide, because that intentionality seeds what you draw to yourself, what becomes created around you, the way that your mind, and if we don't create an intentionality, the intentionality becomes created from the memes, from the conditioning, from what's the easiest for us. So, if anything's a takeaway from this session, I think it's really helpful for us every day to really consider, even if we forget it, we'll forget it the next moment and we'll carry on, making the food and getting kind of worrying about this, that, and the other. But to make a habit. That's why in the bodhicitta, the bodhisattva, there's like a daily bringing to mind the vows. That's a classical form. You can make your own. Maybe the word vow is not necessarily, doesn't land also very easily all the time, but your own commitments, your own intentions. And they can change. It's not like in stone. So you can explore that and to really explore them energetically in your body, suffusing your being, and to take time according to those intentions. Does this suit my intentionality? Some things we can't just jettison. We have to work the edges, but we can move more and more and more towards what really is authentic for us. And then those things that don't serve, with love, we can begin to release. Some things we release that we're in lifelong karmic relationship with, that's maybe very complex for us, families, for example, cultures, karma. It's not like release, you just chuck it all in the dustbin, in the garbage can. Some things, yes. Some things like, that's done. I'm not doing that. That's finished. But other things you can release from the way you're in relationship, if it's more like an enduring karmic thing. So what is empowering for me in this? And that can help also elevate the whole field. As you elevate and bring your frequency of what work is working important for you, and your intentionality will start to elevate the field and what gets drawn to you and how things come to you. So, yeah. So I'm aware that we, to keep us within the time frame, time-bound beings here, to just complete this session by thanking you so much and to share the blessings. Thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for your practice. May we remember to put this original sound, of course. So let's just take a breath and feel just for now. Kate, a quick comment? Nope. Okay. Next time. Sorry, I missed seeing your hand. Sorry. So let's just make an intention now for today. For yourself, can like to bring what you need for you, for life. And bringing that into the heart and breathing it through your whole body, whole awareness. And then let's make an intention also for the world. Let's just send a frequency of love and light out to wherever it's needed for healing, for the upliftment of all, for the dispelling of shadows, for the overcoming of obstacles, to bring about the shift that's needed so we can grow and live and be in a beautiful story, a more beautiful story for these times. Sending this intention, your intentions, and of all beings, of the goodness at the heart of all beings, through the ancient prayer Om Mani Padme Hum.